Hi, I'm your cruise director, Kristen, and this is Virginia Center Commons in Glen Allen, Virginia on October 28th, 2022, 3 days before the mall closed permanently. I'm starting to feel like a professional eulogy giver for malls, and I have a feeling this is only the beginning. Things are getting back to normal for everyone, and mall owners everywhere are taking a look at whether staying open as an enclosed mall is the best path forward as we continue venturing back out into the world. It was incredibly quiet here on the Friday afternoon I visited. A few mall walkers, a group of young men who seemed to be on an outing from a school to get lunch and haircuts, and some maintenance workers who were in the process of removing the lights from all the columns around the mall. I did encounter a few people who wandered in to shop, and it's always strange when you see someone walk in who has no idea the mall is in its final stages. You can just watch the look of shock take over their faces when they realize they're not going to be able to pick up some warm vanilla sugar lotion from Bath & Body Works today. And then there was me, who was there to take photos and video, and I'm happy to report I have lots of footage to show you for this final look inside this 31-year-old property. Phase 1 of Virginia Center Commons opened on October 2nd, 1991. It was developed by Simon Properties and featured 2 anchors, Leggett and Hess's, along with a food court and about 50 inline tenants. Grand opening weekend featured some very big names for 1991. Gabrielle Carteris from Beverly Hills 90210, soap star Jeannie Cooper, and none other than fitness guru and spangled shorts enthusiast Richard Simmons. They also hosted a taping of the America's Funniest Home Videos spin-off, America's Funniest People. Do any of you remember that show? It was hosted by Dave Coulier, and they would go places like malls and street festivals where everyday people would step up to the mic to tell jokes or do their best impressions. I always liked it because I was a goofy kid who told corny jokes and I wanted to be on the show. There are a few old episodes out there of it on YouTube, and if you look them up, you'll probably do what I did and spend the entire time marveling at the mall in the background and challenging yourself to figure out what mall it is. On the other hand, maybe I'm just weird. Phase 2 of the mall opened in 1993, roughly doubling the size of the mall and adding a Hecht's. By 1993, Hess's had already been purchased by Profits, the first of many, many anchor changes. The mall added JCPenney in 1994 and Sears in February of 1995, bringing the total anchor count to 5. This is a pretty big mall. Excluding the anchor spaces, the mall's square footage is around 775,000. When fully open, it had spaces for about 85 tenants. Business was booming as this was the newest, shiniest thing in the Richmond metro market. In 1996, it was reported that the mall held the largest Disney store in the state, something that was a huge draw for families. It was definitely fulfilling its role as a super regional mall, drawing shoppers from a large radius. Over 1997 and 1998, Leggett and Profits exited the local market as part of a few sales and mergers, and both anchor spaces at VCC were sold to Dillard's, one operating as the men's and furniture shop and the other holding housewares and women's and kids' clothes. 2003 was a turning point for Virginia Center Commons because 2 newer, more upscale shopping options opened, Short Pump Town Center and Stony Point Fashion Park, both open-air lifestyle centers that featured upscale brands like Nordstrom. Short Pump Town Center continues to do very well, although I am hearing reports from locals that Stony Point is slowly but surely beginning to have vacancy problems. In 2003, lifestyle centers were very new in most parts of the country, and shoppers began choosing these new centers over enclosed malls. Richmond does have another similarly sized mall, Regency Mall, that opened in 1975, and it was also seeing a similar shift in shopping behavior. Sometimes when I'm doing my research, what I'm not finding is very telling, and articles about this mall and Regency began to drop off significantly after the two lifestyle centers opened, which suggests that it was no longer generating as much interest or attention as it once did. This drop in interest began very slowly, but by the beginning of the 2010s, the cracks were becoming very visible. Dillard's closed their two locations, one in 2010 and one in 2011. One location would be occupied by Burlington Coat Factory, and the other remained vacant until 2014 when American Family Fitness opened. Junior anchor Old Navy also exited in 2011, and it was around this time that the mall's manager began asking Simon for funding to make improvements like updates to the flooring and signage. It does not appear that she received what she needed. The mall's appearance is unchanged from its opening in 1991, including the teal and salmon color scheme throughout. In 2011, the mall had about 24 vacancies, which means this was the point where they needed to make some decisions about whether they were going to make some updates or allow the mall to further slide into obsolescence. I've covered a few malls that were owned by Simon at the time, and they were leveraging a lot of their underperforming properties in order to prop up their flagship ones, mortgaging them for far more than they were realistically worth. The assessed value of Virginia Center Commons fell from $154 million in 2003 to $71 million by 2012. By 2014, Simon had begun spinning off many of their more middling properties to its sister company, Washington Prime Group, which held about 98 malls and shopping centers in its portfolio when it launched that year. So effectively, the mall had been downgraded from a crown jewel in the Richmond retail landscape to just another mall that was going to eventually drift off into the horizon. In 2016, Washington Prime began discussing converting Virginia Center Commons to an open-air center in the mold of its two biggest competitors, but this discussion doesn't seem to have gone beyond, hey, wouldn't it be great if we demalled this place? Macy's, the mall's most upscale anchor, closed here in 2016, leaving Sears, JCPenney, and Burlington as the three remaining anchors. This Dixon's Auctions place, who occupy the former Old Navy as well, has taken over an entire former mall corridor for storage. Their hours showed them as open, and there were a couple of guys working inside, but the door was locked, so I guess you and I will have to settle for a few clandestine shots through the door. A couple of these storefronts look super vintage, so I was disappointed. They opened here in 2018 and are a bit of a Virginia Center Commons dynasty, as the owner's father operated a furniture store in the mall when it opened. I don't usually draw attention to the music you're hearing, but this is a lo-fi remix of some music from Kirby and the Forgotten Land from a stage where he fights baddies in a dilapidated mall, so I had to. It was made by a new creator called Xcant Music, and it's just really good. I dropped a link in the description to this video for their channel, so you should head over there and give them some love. I know if you like quirky video game music like what I sneak into my malls, you'll love their music. Washington Prime sold the mall in 2017 to a new owner, one with, well, let's just say not a great reputation. If you've been paying attention to trends in both my and several other creators' videos, you're probably bracing for the next words I'm about to say. The mall was purchased in 2017 by Cohen Retail Investment Group for $9 million. And in the Richmond Times-Dispatch on January 27, 2017, Mr. Mike Cohen himself was quoted as saying, "We've been very successful in terms of revitalizing our malls. We are getting calls from sellers that they want to dispose of their properties." That's an interesting choice of words, dispose. Unfortunately, it's apt because often when this company gets a hold of a mall, it's headed straight down the drain. They really started kicking into gear around the time I started kicking into gear researching and documenting malls, and I've unfortunately been witnessing this slow-motion train wreck in progress along with the rest of you. In fact, if you haven't already, go watch my friend and DMod founder Sal's video on the Berkshire Mall to hear another sordid tale of how Cohen and his company neglect their properties. They're also extremely prolific, continuing to snap up malls faster than you can count, while the properties they already own rack up tax debts and unpaid bills. We used to like to complain about Moonbeam, another infamous mall slumlord, but when it really comes down to it, at their peak, Moonbeam only owned about 10 malls. Cohen currently owns, according to a list I found on Wikipedia, 65 malls. Their list of formerly owned properties reads like the In Memoriam segment from the Oscars. Here's all those streetlights I said they were taking down, and they're much larger up close than when they're hanging way up near the ceiling. They're like 4 feet tall. Between 2017 and 2018, the mall's assessed value fell from $28.5 million to $15.8 million. Various reports of high theft and threats on employees precipitated the exit of beloved national chains like Hot Topic and Spencer's. In October of 2018, it was reported by Richmond.com that the mall's holding company had been sued by Henrico County for building code violations relating to the condition of the parking lot and a non-functioning air conditioning system. They repaved portions of the parking lot before appearing in court and were fined a token amount of $850. Additionally, by the end of 2017, the mall was $277,000 behind on real estate taxes, and by the same October 2018 article, the taxes had only been partially paid. Remember in January 2017 when Cohen said he was very successful in revitalizing their properties? Yeah, about that. Cohen's company was sued in 2019 by a restaurant tenant, Alposio's Grill and Lounge, for $2.9 million for doing what is legally called constructive eviction, where their lease was terminated and their locks were changed without notice. Sears closed in early 2019, leaving only JCPenney and Burlington as retail anchors. Cohen sold the mall again in 2020 for $8.3 million, $700,000 less than they purchased it for in 2017, to two companies, Rebke Corp. And Shaman Hotels. The former Sears and Macy's, along with the wing that led to them, was demolished, and construction began on, from what I can tell, is going to become one or more hotels. The plan for the entire mall is for it to be mostly demolished, and built in its place will be the Henrico Sports and Convocation Center, which will feature an arena and several other venues for activities. Another parcel of land adjacent to the mall property will feature 75 townhomes. There have been mixed reports from remaining business owners about how this process has been for them. Some have said the mall's new owners have been very helpful in assisting them to find new spaces, many of which have decided to relocate or consolidate in Richmond's other enclosed mall, Regency. Some others who signed year-long leases mere months before the closing announcements was made have sued and stated they're not given enough time to move out and find somewhere to go. Although I do have to say, the lights are on and they appear to be caught up on their obligations, so it's hard not to see this company as a step up from the last guy. I've said before that every closing mall I cover has its own mood, and the mood here was resignation, I suppose. I think the writing had been on the wall for a while, and it's taken someone with a real plan for something the region desired to finally put the last nail in its coffin. Malls that close can be facing a number of fates. Some of them sit derelict for decades, while legal red tape and a lack of direction prevent them from being repurposed. And then there's this mall, which is already being torn down, and the plan is for its replacement to be completed by September of 2023. No matter how many memories this mall may hold, demolition is a better alternative than to watch it defaced and allowed to rot away. This is how you do it. This is how you end one chapter and begin writing another. Time keeps moving forward, and sometimes you can't take it all with you. So, Virginia Center Commons, let's place you alongside your empty things remembered and take comfort in knowing you won't be forgotten.